probably our fault, but maybe yours if you were in the bathroom. Anyway, so etymological roots, again, relate to the breakdown of the root of the actual words itself, whereas...
That like got thrown off the fucking thing.
No.
Like that was upside down on its back, and then that got flipped. Wow. Oh. We just had like something really weird just happen.
Yeah.
Advanced tablet is on my buffet because we're in the dining room, and it was upside down on its back, and it just literally like flipped off the table and onto the floor.
Yeah.
Right side up. Landed right side up. Like it was like someone came along, slipped their finger under, and like flipped came under and like flipped it, and it like flipped off the table and landed on the floor perfectly right side up.
Yeah.
So
without further ado, let's get into some etymology and epithets.
Yes, please.
For this many-named mother goddess. So, as I've talked about a little bit on the show before, etymology is just one of my passions.
Yes.
I think it stemmed from actually taking a class on etymology in high school, and we would have to like break down a word by like each root that it's comprised of.
Oh, cool.
To find like the exact definition of what it originally meant.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was so fascinating. I love it for just words in general, but especially names. I also just have a passion for that. I have since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I thought a fun thing for us to do for this episode would be to kind of marry that passion with obviously another big passion, which is our pagan faith.
Yes.
So I put together kind of a comprehensive list of some of Hekate's epithets as well as the etymological root of her name itself. Now, if you guys don't know, you probably do, but in case you don't, etymology is kind of the study of particular roots in a word and what they add up to.
Yeah.
So the meaning of her name itself, whereas epithets are more like a royal title.
Right.
All of the deities
have
many epithets, just depending on what aspect of them someone was wanting to pray to at a certain particular time, whether that's to glorify them or to ask for their assistance in a certain area of life.
Right.
So yeah, I've put together this list of a few epithets that still today have names associated with them that are very commonly still used in modern society. And aren't weird or out there. It's a lot that you would not think would be associated with the deities, but it turns out they not only are, but were derived from words invented to describe aspects of them and love for them, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's so awesome.
Yeah. So the etymological root of Hekate's name comes from the word Hekateros, which means each of the two, which I think is very interesting.
Yes.
As a Hekatean, do you see kind of the
each of the two is it's very liminal. It's very much about ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you hear the title, when you hear the word each of the two, that is derived from each of the two, it's effectual.
Yeah.
And especially when you consider the fact that she does appear also in quadruple form.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost have the four ways, the four elements.
Mm-hmm.
Hekate, which once we get to where we're going, we have a lot more of the fun, like magical, metaphysical power aspects of Hekate that we're going to get into. But in her four aspect, it really acknowledges how she's in charge of the four elements. So not only is she assigned the heavens, the earth, and the seas in her triplicated form, in her quadruple form, she has dominion over the elements themselves, earth, air, water, and fire.
That makes so much sense,
yeah,
honestly.
So, and we'll get more into that later, but that's so when I hear
really
each
cool.
of the two, I think more of her quadruple form.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or her form is Maiden, Mother, She Who Roams, and Beast. Lion-headed, bull-headed
That is really cool.
Yeah.
I love that. So as you can see, we've put up a list of so many names that are derived from Hekateros. Any variant of Catherine is going to be derived from that root. HEKA-TEA, which again is derived from Catherine as well.
Yes.
Caitlin, Rena, even Ina.
Ina Garten, my barefoot Contessa.
See, she knew what she was doing when she put on that conical hat.
I know, and her one and only Halloween episode that she ever did. Halloween for grown-ups.
So yeah, any variant of Catherine in all of its forms, Caitlin, etc., blah, 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 all derived from Hecateros, which I think is really cool. There are less variants of that root on the male spectrum, but there are still a few. So any spelling of Killian, Kieran, Kyan, which I think is cool.
Yes.
Or you could pronounce it Kian if you wanted to, and her and Keys. You know? So
I know.
cute,
Well, that's rooted from her Keeper of Keys.
Yes, exactly. So then Callan, Cathal, and which I think Cathal is kind of...
Do you know what's interesting?
What?
I didn't even thought to think about this. Almost all the male names are exclusively Gaelic, Irish.
Yeah, I was noticing that.
That is amazing.
Like, I think it's very interesting. Like, she clearly has such a root in that part of
Well,
the
and then we have the Morrigan over there, which is the triplicate Death, Crossroads, War of Vengeance, Witchcraft.
And isn't Breed linked
yes,
to her as well?
Queridan.
Okay.
Yes. And so sometimes they're interchangeable.
Yeah.
Hekate Queridan. In fact, I have a chant song, kind of like a folk chant song that I do that's on my playlist when I do ritual, which I will eventually make public for you guys to use yourselves. And it's done in specific order from getting in the mood, like before ritual to through, and then all these things. But anyway, in one of them, she referred to as the song calls out to Hekate Queridan.
Oh wow!
So it goes Hekate Queridan, dark mother, take us in. Hekate Queridan, let us be reborn. And it's like not Hekate and Queridan.
Right.
It's Hekate Queridan, dark mother, not mothers, dark mother, take us in.
That's so interesting.
So it's just really. I just find it interesting, just like we found her here in the Pacific Northwest,
yes, exactly.
an hour's ferry ride or so from where I was born, to Ireland. Like, Hekate, she wanders, she's fucking everywhere.
So my personal favorite from the boys Hecateros list is Catherine.
Yes, I love Catherine. Yes.
I love so much. My middle name is actually Catherine, and it's my favorite part of my name, actually, growing up.
Yeah.
Although more recently, I've developed more of an appreciation for my first name, but...
Well, that's also partly your own manifestation.
Yes, exactly. But growing up, Catherine was by far my favorite part of my name.
Yeah.
So I've often thought I would like to continue the tradition of like a Catherine-derived middle name for my future children, whether it's a boy or a girl or them.
I like that.
Catherine is for sure on my list.
I like that.
So let's get into some of the commonly used names today that are derived from her epithets. One of them, the first one that I wrote down, is Angela, which is so funny because that's used so commonly within Catholicism.
Yeah.
However, it is actually derived from Hekate Angelos, which meant Hekate the messenger.
Yes, and not only that, and we'll get into it when I get into her whole thing about Christianity and Jesus, and why, again, she's enemy number one, is because angels are connected to her, and angels were her emissaries, and we're going to do it deeper, but in early Christianity and Judaism, there would be coins and shit minted with Hekate and angels, and archangels.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I feel like each of these names really kind of speaks to a part of her. Starting with, I have never met an Angela that you should cross.
No, never.
Do not fuck with an Angela.
Angela, Angelica, anything derivative of her Angelos. Yeah, no.
No. So next up is Nissa, which I love. I think that's such a kind of a cute little twisty name.
Yes.
But it's not very common. Like, I don't see it very often, but it would be so usable. And that one is derived from her epithet Hekate Nissa, meaning Hekate the beginning, which I really love.
Like, okay, so that gives me chills, because first of all, I've never actually come across this epithet.
Really?
Yeah, and what gives me chills about that is, because I've heard her, she references herself as I have been there from the beginning and I am not, which is at the end, but it really, when you hear that title, you're like, yeah, she's primordial. She was the fucking beginning. And there's still so much we don't like we reported in Witchcraft in the News, how a temple to her in Apollo was just discovered in the UK.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That was only 4 months ago that was discovered, with all those graves of hundreds of black dogs, and it was a temple to Hekate Apollo. And that was in England, and we just discovered that. Like, there is still so much that, like, I feel like a lot of archaeologists and historians, when it comes to Hekate, they need to start going to her epithets.
Exactly.
And then from there being like, Hekate the begining. Okay, where would that come from? Like, what beginning? Like, what is that? Like, that's another, like, okay, she came from the dark ages.
Exactly. I mean, and as someone who has utmost respect for her, but is not a Hecatean myself, I learned so much about her just going through her epithets for this particular research in our episode, Okay, so the next one is just any variant of Leanne or Leandra, Leandria, anything with that kind of root, and that is related to Hekate Leina. I may be mispronouncing, so apologies, but
you pronounced it, I'm pretty sure you pronounced it correctly.
I did? Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. She will pat me on the shoulder. Yes. But I'm sure you as a Leo will love this one, because that means Hekate the Lioness.
Yes, it's one of my fucking favorites of hers. This is her in lion formed or lion headed, and I believe it's Hesiod's theogony, or it's from Homer. It might be from Homer. No, it's either the Theogony or the Eleusinian mysteries, actually. But it says, "You, those who are dedicated to me and call upon me often, will always perceive me lion-headed or lion-formed,
Oh,
and will perceive
wow.
everything lion-formed."
I love
And she is
that.
often, like I said, and I think it's because, again, we're still learning about Kibble, we're still learning about
Right.
Betchatahoyuk, we're still learning about these things, but I do believe Kibble, Hekate, Hermes were aspects of the original triple form.
Oh, yeah.
And I think how when it morphed and they merged, became whatever. You know, Hekate then was often seated with lions, rides her chariot on equal course with Helios, and off to bring the dawn, and often that is chariot is drawn by lions, fierce lions.
Oh, wow.
And if not lions, then fierce bulls.
See, this is so interesting because I obviously lack the expansive wealth of knowledge that you have about her. So I'm going through and I'm learning all of this information about her through these epithets and these names, and then the tidbits that you're chiming in and kind of fleshing all of that out, it really is just giving me such a more developed understanding of what each one means, which is
Yeah.
really cool.
Well, you did the same thing with Hera and
Yeah.
Juno for me. Like, there was, I mean, I obviously always know there's more to deities, and I do pay attention to their stories, but all you ever hear about Hera, Juno, little not so as much.
Yeah.
She doesn't have the same type of rep in Italy that she did in Greece.
For sure.
But there was, you know, there's still, you kind of fed just one real thing, which is she's a
Exactly.
jealous, vindictive cunt who
Right.
just wants to punish the victim instead of the perpetrator. And you don't really hear, like, oh, like, she also takes care of grain and crops and children, and
Exactly.
she takes care of expectant mothers, and like these things you
Right.
don't hear
Exactly.
because straight men are assholes.
Exactly. And I think that part of the reason we're even doing this episode is to kind of correct that misrepresentation, because I think for both of them, over time, it just became their darker aspects that were being discussed, and their other aspects became sort of largely lost.
Correct.
And as people who intimately know them, that makes us sad, and we want to correct that, and we want to speak their truth.
Right. Well, and we'll talk more about this later, but I will just say that, like, I don't want to judge how people approach her. I don't want to judge how anyone approaches any deity.
No, not at all.
What aspects. Like, I understand. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, because I know there's, like, people, I guess, policing the worship of her right now.
Gosh.
And they're kind of, like, I guess, getting on people about it. I guess it's, like, that's becoming a thing of, like, and I guess not even with her, but with obviously a lot of deities.
Yeah.
But especially with her, people are getting a little policey.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't want to say that, like, if your work with her is as a dark goddess, as a mother goddess, as, or not a mother goddess, as a dark goddess, as a goddess of just death, necromancy, witchcraft, and that's kind of where you're at with her, goddess of the night, and that's kind of where you put her, fine.
Right.
For me, though, and why I want to do this, and not just why I want to do this, I also want to be clear, the reason we're doing this episode is because back in October, when Hekate, during a full moon ritual, told me, like, you need to fucking do this show. Like, this is what I want you to do. Like, like I said, I was trying to figure out what to do with my YouTube channel.
Right.
I didn't know what to do with it, and I looked to her for guidance, and she answered right away with the show, came together, but from the very beginning, she was like, I require of you, in return, to do a HEKA-TEA of it all episode, which we're doing now, that will give the full breadth of who I am and where I come from and what I've been, and because that's very much how I worship her. Like, yes, if I go to her as the queen of witches, obviously. I'm a witch. I am her child. Like, yes. But the way that I really worship her and go to her, that's only if I'm doing spellcraft. Otherwise, she is the grain mother. She is the bringer of the sun. She is the healer. She is the savior. She is the world soul. She is the one and only, the beginning and the end. Like, it's everything.
Right.
That is very, like, if I'm coming to her as a witch, to the witch. But otherwise, I go to her in the daytime, and I'm praying to her as Hekate Honey, which is her as the goddess of the sun, the bringer of the dawn, the warmer, the creatrix of the sun itself. Like, it has nothing to do with her. The prayer has nothing to do, doesn't mention her as queen of witches at all.
Right.
It talks about her as the sun and as keeper of the stars.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. And yeah, same as you. I would never judge another witch's relationship to any deity. However, my thing is that I think some people, because most of the information out there is relating to the darker aspects, some people just aren't aware of the other aspects.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about that if you really are going to worship this deity and work with them, like, you need to at least be aware of all of their aspects. It's on you as a witch how you're going to call on them, but I think it's your duty to learn about them all.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway, off of our soapbox for now.
We just wanted to make sure we clarified, we're not going to police anyone in how you approach a deity.
No.
We just want you to, hopefully this will help, as we do with any deity now or in the past or in the future, we hope that it just gives you even a more deeper, fulfilled, well-rounded, intimate connection with them on every fucking level, so you can experience working with them in the most magnificent, all-encompassing way.
Yes. So the next one, I will take full admission of the fact that this one is a little bit of a stretch, but it's a stretch that my short little arms are long enough to make.
Okay.
So I think it's fine. So this epithet is Hekate-TEA, which she actually shares with both Demeter and Persephone.
Well, and that's because they got merged in the Eleusinian mysteries as the triple form.
Right. So that means Hekate the all-knowing. Now for me, where my brain goes with this is Daria.
Yes.
Although technically, I will make the disclaimer, if you actually look up the root of Daria, it's Darius, which is a different word. However, I think it's close enough that I associate the name with Hekate-TEA.
Yes.
Of course, the most famous pop culture example of which is our sarcasm queen,
Daria
Morgendorffer. And frankly, like knowing that about the name, I see so much of Hekate in Daria.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%.
So the next one is the name Dion in both its masculine and feminine forms, which obviously is pronounced the same but spelled differently. That means, or that is derived from her epithet Hekate Dione, just meaning the goddess Hekate. So I just love that.
Yes.
I think of Dion from Clueless.
Oh yeah.
So the next one, this is another one with a lot of names.
Too bad the actress who played her is homophobic.
Oh,
Piece of
I
crap.
know.
So disappointing and sad.
I know. Because I feel like, as gay kids growing up before, we knew this.
We
like,
loved Dion, fucking Dion.
I know. She was our queen
Yep.
growing up. So that was sad.
Only she could pull off a bucket hat.
Exactly.
Made out of like an actual bucket, but it was a top hat.
Goddess.
Total.
Anyway, so the next name on the list is another one with several variants of the name, deriving from her epithet Hekate Alexiades, and that means Hekate, the averter of evil, which I think is super badass.
Yes.
But those names will be anything with the variant Alexandria, Alexandra, Alexa, Alexi, etc., etc., etc. There's so many falling into that root, but that is tied not only to her, but with several others in the Greek pantheon as well, which I think is really cool. I love like seeing those kind of synchronicities with certain names that are shared by multiple deities, because you can really see the energy of each one in the name.
I agree.
Okay, so next we've got the name Letitia, or Letty if you are a nickname person.
Or Letitia.
Yes, I am not a nickname person.
No, I'm not really.
But I would never judge anybody else for being one.
No.
So that comes from Hekate Oletis, and that means Hekate the Destroyer.
It's one of my favorite epithets to invoke.
Because
it's really about smashing and destroying. I mean, you can call, obviously, destroyer for anything, but typically invoking her as the destroyer is when you just like, not just you want to remove obstacles to a situation or whatever, you want to just fucking, Hulk smash, like, in one pile of rubble. Your patience is worn thin. Because when you do that, it's like dropping a nuclear bomb. Like, so you got to be ready for everything that comes with removing that situation, obstacle, whatever. So you just want to be careful before you reach out to that epithet of her, because
for sure.
She's terrifying in that form.
For sure, I bet she is. It kind of reminds me of the tower in tarot.
Yes.
How it's dramatic, big crashing change, but it can be either positive or negative.
Correct.
I like that. So the next one is Moira, and that comes from Hekate Moira, which is Hekate of fate, which I really love. It just kind of, I think it really kind of speaks to like her scope in the universe.
Well, yeah, because she is described as fate itself, and that she is her triple form is Clothos, like he says, and Atropos, the three fates, and that she's also the thread and the scissor itself. She's literally, it's like, So it's like there are deities who have Moira or variations of it in it, where it's talking about how they wield fate or can affect fate.
Like both Zeus and Apollo have Moira Getes, which means the leader of fate, but I think it's really interesting the distinction that they have that differing meaning, whereas Hekate is just Moira meaning fate itself.
Yes, she is fate itself,
I thought that was very interesting when I was researching all of this.
And I also think some of these epithets and their meanings give you a clue as to why, as they say, when they were trying to explain how Hekate was here, Zeus honored her above all. And you're sitting there and you read these things, there's no reason for it. Some would be like, oh, well, because she helped defeat the Titans, blah, blah, blah. But no, because other deities did too. His siblings did too.
Right.
Like, there was something about her that they almost, because they were like, the new pantheon was taking hold, so it was almost like, okay, well, we gotta kind of still shift the focus from her.
Right.
But we also, she's fucking there, and, she is respected and honored above all. Well, there is a fucking reason why. And, when the other deities, like Athena, go to do magic, do things on mortals, they often go to Hekate, or Hecate's garden to make potions. The deities themselves are there's only things she can do that we cannot do.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And I think some of that in this, I'm realizing, if you actually start looking at those themselves, it kind of gives you more clues to pop her pre-Greek, Hellenistic, modern idea or knowledge of her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that you can really trace that information through the roots of these names.
Yeah.
And I love that so many of these are so common still today.
Yes.
I love that. So the next one can be a little exciting for all of you Hunchback of Notre Dame nerds out there.
Yes.
So this epithet is shared between Hekate, Apollo, and Artemis.
Yes, her other triplicate form and
Exactly.
cousins. Yeah.
So the epithet. Excuse me, I cannot speak today. The epithet is Hekate Phoebe, which means Hekate the Bright, which of course all about her bringing the sun and all of that fun stuff.
Yes.
So the names that result are both the masculine Phoebus and the feminine Phoebe.
Yes.
Which you have also gone over that information in her tree.
Yes.
So yeah, that's another connection with that name as well. So I think that's cool. The next one is Ambrosia, derived from Hekate Ambrotus, meaning Hekate the Immortal.
I love that.
Hekate Callista, from Hekate Callisti, meaning Hekate the Beautiful. And we think she is.
She is. So beautiful.
And then here's one that, as you can imagine, is shared with Persephone. This is anything related to Cora or Cori, no matter which spelling that you use, with a C or a K, they're both equally have her hand in the cookie jar.
Yes.
So that derives from Hekate Cori, which means Hekate the Maiden.
Yes, which, again, we'll get into deeper, but Hekate was never a crone, and as we talked about, like, epithets for Hermes and Hekate is she who roams, the roaming one. And now, do I think that Crone actually came from that epithet? No, I think it's coincidental because Crowley is really to blame for that, and we will get into that. But Hekate historically has always been a maiden. And a virgin maiden at that. Now she does have one deific daughter associated with her, but only in one source, and that's Scylla.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you hear Circe and Medea referred to as daughters of Hekate, and we'll get, once we get to where we're going, is Hekate of the witches, we'll get into that. But that's more likely as in, you're a daughter of Hera, I am a son of Hekate.
Exactly. We're not saying that literally Hera was my 28th great-grandmother.
No. Now there are, and we'll get into it, but there were some regions where Zeus and Hekate were actually more than likely coupled together instead of Zeus and Hera. And so in those regions, maybe they know something we don't. And there was a situation there. So I don't know, maybe for all we know, like, I was thinking about this late last night, actually, after you went home, after we parted ways, I was thinking about this, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what if in a contemporary explanation, what if this is like Celestial the Graduate, and Hekate is Zeus's Mrs. Robinson?
Oh my god.
Like,
Cuckoo.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Actually, I was kind of thinking about that conversation yesterday as well, because you had mentioned them being coupled, and there is a certain version of the myth where Hera was actually Zeus's second wife, and he was married to Thetis before.
Yes.
So I'm curious if that kind of is connected to this version.
Right, like maybe in these places, these like couple of places, remote temples, whatever, these temples, towns, where Zeus and Hekate were worshipped as companions. If that was, if that original goddess was worshipped there in sync with Hekate.
Yeah.
And it just, again, there's so much we don't know.
Exactly.
And we'll get into this with the Christian thing, but unfortunately, Christianity really went, as we know, on a rampage to destroy all the temples, the statues, the liturgical works. But Hecate's liturgical works, not her like scary, spooky legends and warnings, but like her actual works written by like devotees and people who honor her, went well into the 12th, 13th, 14th century.
Oh, yeah.
So the church was, from the very early 1st century, was battling Hekate above all. And so as a result, so much about her has really been destroyed in a long campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up, I'm done with the names that I found, but I decided to take this little research one step further and have a little fun with it.
Yes.
So each of these names, I looked up.
This is so cute, by the way.
It is cute. I looked up fictional characters who bear that name.
Yes.
Because I was curious to see kind of how like the uses that we are familiar with day to day would really sort of bring these epithets and these names of Hekate to life.
Yes.
So I created a pop culture mood board for her.
I love it. Oh yeah, they all, for the most part, are all characters.
Yes.
Except for like one or two. Like, well, Ina and Cillian.
And Katya is
and
not.
Katya, yes, obviously. Well, kind of, because Katya is a drag character.
That is true. But not fictional.
Right.
I tried to stick with fictional characters for the most part, because
some of them are just iconic people. You have to use them.
But I did try and stick with fictional characters where I could, because I think like what I was trying, like the point I was trying to make was that these names were invented to describe her, and that will have been passed down through at first oral history. Yeah. But our modern day interpretation will be our stories. So our stories in our books and on our TV and our shows and our movies. And I just really thought all of these examples really just spoke to me of her and brought all of this research that I did about the names to life. And
well,
I
and
had such a good time.
to quote Ina, if you can't find a fictional character to use, a real one is fine. And what I love is the image you have of her from that episode. We always see the meme where it's like, if you can't find the bones of real children, of wild children, store-bought is fine. Like,
if you can't summon the flames directly from hell,
store-bought is fine. I love this. I love that you chose Catherine Mortoy from
Of
Cool
course.
Intentions for Catherine.
See, I also included Catherine Thorne from The Omen.
Which I love, yes.
Because for me, I decided that the spelling Catherine with a Y is different enough from Catherine spelled traditionally.
Oh, I agree. I feel like whenever
it gives a different energy to me.
Yes, whenever I meet the Catherines, depending on how they spell it, well, they're completely different. Like, Catherine's with a Y, bitches will cut you. Whereas Catherine, as in Catherine, we have here, I always feel are more, I don't want to say, like, maternal. They're more like, I mean, I guess more like, I would describe, like, they're more Queen Elizabeth. Like, I don't know how to describe it, other than that's kind of the only image that kept popping in my head that I can kind of use as an example. But, like, I feel like these are very fitting. Like, and definitely, every time I've ever met a Catherine, depending on how they spell it, it's very dependent on their personality. What is interesting, though, is that if they're all, whoever spells it, you know, R-I-N-E, they're all kind of pretty similar personalities.
Yes.
Catherine with the Y's are all pretty similar every time I meet them.
And my middle name is Catherine with a T-H-A.
Yes.
Which I think we are very different from the T-H-E.
Correct,
Catherine,
and the Y's as well. Like, it's very, interesting. So I agree with you using the two different examples for the name, because the names are very different.
Exactly. I mean, another example for a T-H-A Catherine would be Catherine Hepburn.
Yes.
And we all know you did not fuck with Miss Hepburn. The one that I chose to use in this slide was Essie Davis as Katerina Vermeer in Girl with a Pearl Earring.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite movies. Underrated masterpiece, in my opinion, and I will die on this hill and I will fight anyone who comes for me. And that's what it means. And that's what it means to be a THA Catherine.
Fuck yeah. Well, thank you for creating this.
Of course, I had so much fun.
It's hilarious. I hope you guys have gotten ideas. I hope you enjoyed the pop culture references. Let us know if you have any favorites, if you have any other pop culture icons that you associate with any of her etymological names or epithets. Yeah, so thank you for that.
You are so welcome.
And next, we have what epithets for us?
I do have epithets. Okay, so now we are going to get into some epithets without any common names attached to them.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you could, but these would be a little more difficult.
Yes.
So just to reiterate, in case, you know, we were rambling and you missed it, probably our fault. But maybe yours if you were in the bathroom. Anyway, so etymological roots, again, relate to the breakdown of the root of the actual words itself. Whereas...
That got thrown off the fucking thing.
No.
Like, that was upside down on its back, and then that got flipped. Wow.
Oh.
We just had, like, something really weird just happen.
Yeah.
An advanced tablet is on my buffet, because, you know, we're in the dining room, and it was upside down on its back, and it just literally, like, flipped off the table and onto the floor.
Yeah.
Right side up. Landed right side up. Like, it was like someone came along, slipped their finger under, and like flipped, came under and like flipped it, and it like flipped off the table and landed on the floor perfectly straight right side up.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I
may have some fae in here, so or a house spirit. So I'm actually trying to figure that out. Anyway, could also be whatever. I don't know. Anyway, continue.
Moving on. So epithets, as opposed to etymological roots, are words kind of derived and invented to describe certain aspects of deities. Now, of course, with my list of names, I've gone through several of Hecate's epithets.
Yes.
However, as most deities in the Greco-Roman pantheon and other pantheons, I'm sure, have many names.
Yes.
Typically, you will find maybe 50 to 100 epithets for a deity. Hekate has a lot more than that. She's got many hundreds. So I guess that makes sense why she's often referred to as the many names. Yeah. Although, you know, other deities are referred to like goddess of many names.
Yes.
But I feel like with her, it's like the many named is placed first. You know?
It is. No, it is. Yeah, many names. Yes.
So I think that's kind of an interesting distinction.
It makes me think of from The Charge of the Goddess, which Dion Fortune rewrote into a poem, but originally comes from Italy and comes from the worship of Diana Hecate and Aradia, the Gospel of Witches. And Aradia was like basically like a witchy Jesus before Jesus, and that's where we get the original Charge of the Goddess from. And in it, you know, it opens with here are these words, you know, of here are the words of the Great Mother, who of old was called, you know, Hecate, Kybele, Diana, Astarte, Erin, Rod, Isis, Breed, Queridan, blah, 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 and by many other names. That's what it makes me think of.
For sure.
Like, and I go, okay, well, yeah, that came from Italy, and that's what she was worshipped as, Diana Hecate. And So it would make sense that that would still be her. That would be her declaration.
Yeah.
Like I have as old. So like many names, and
Yes.
then so yeah, just makes sense.
For sure. Now, of course, I'm not going to make you suffer by going through each of the
No,
hundreds.
no. We will not do that to you. You can easily do that on your own. Well, not easily, because as we know, I just learned of one, like, that I didn't know of. Because she has so many and goes so far back, we still don't, and yet she's still a mystery. Out of so many deities, aside from maybe the Ostre,
Right.
like, with Hekate, it's like with a lot of deities, we know a lot. But with Hekate, with as much as we know, we still know nothing. Like it's just like with Kibble. Like
Right.
it's just we're learning more and more and more.
Watch an article come out about like, oh, she was worshipped as Hekate yesterday.
Right, exactly. Well, exactly. Like, but that's the thing is some of the things that some of the things we do know of more than likely about Eostre. I was reading and I was like, these seem very connected to Hekate, and yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me if that ended up, we come up Witchcraft in the News one day, we have well guys, here it is. We were right, that, archaeologists have recently discovered, like I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But so this list is kind of a more just exhaustive list of the most common of her epithets, and a couple of them I did cover. A lot of the names I covered were sort of her lesser known, so if I run across one that I've already covered, I won't reiterate. But other than those, she's got Hekate Dodophoros. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
What do you say?
Dodophoros?
Yes, Dodophoros.
Dodophoros, thank you. Hekate Dodophoros, the torchbearer. Hekate Enodia in the road.
Yes.
Hekate Epipyrgidia.
Let me see. Yes, Hekate Epipyrgidia. I usually say it a lot slower if I ever use it, which I don't often.
Yeah.
But it's like
Pyrgidia.
Pyrgidia, correct.
I mean, I'm used to fumbling over these things on my personal rituals.
Right.
On the new and full moon, I call Hera and Juno by each one of their epithets.
Yes.
And I kind of roll through them all in a list. I think she really loves it. But there are a couple that I discovered more recently that are really long. So there's definitely been times when I'm before her and I have my candles lit and I'm like, Hera, and then I'm like, I'm sorry, I tried.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would do with Hekate. I'm sorry, I tried.
So that's the vibes that this particular epithet gives me, to be quite honest.
Well, and I'll often, just like we did in the last episode where I was talking about when I was trying to read tribal names with Hekate, and if I know, because of my dyslexia, my learning disabilities, like if I know that no matter what, I'm not going to pronounce it right and I'm going to fuck it up, I will give up.
Yeah.
Because I would rather I'll just be like, I'm going to skip it.
Right.
Like, I'll attempt it, as we saw, I will, but I might just give up trying if I really might realize my brain will not allow me to unravel it, to figure it out. Even and I just don't trust whenever I've been like, oh, Google, how do you pronounce this name? And you hit the speaker or whatever to hear the pronunciation. There have been so many times where I've done words that I know how they're pronounced just to see, and it will pronounce it wrong. Yeah, so I just have learned, okay, well, I can't trust it, so I would rather not butcher it. I want to give it a good college try. Exactly. But if I can't, I'll stop halfway and just be like, I am sorry, but I just please forgive me.
Right. So next we've got Hekate Cathonia,
yes.
Which is of the earth or underworld,
yes.
which I actually think this kind of brings back one of the names that I mentioned in the male Hecateros section, which is Chthon,
yes.
Which is derived from Hecateros.
Yes.
However, I feel like because of the pronunciation, it could also be related to Cathonia.
Well, and that's the thing is, from what I understood, what I've read, that unrelated to Hekate, but I came across that name, and I swear to God, where I had read about the name Chthon, it did say that it was derived from Chthonic.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
So I was like, okay, well then.
Yeah, that's definitely a clear.
To me, that would say that to me says that's to me it just seems like it's more of a double, where maybe the name came from, we say Hecateros, sure, but maybe it came from Hekate, Cathonia,
yeah, and
it just got switched together to just be Chthon.
Right, that totally makes sense to me. Anyway, moving on, we've got Hekate Klidokos, which is the key bearer or key keeper.
Yes.
I was about to say one that I've already said, so I delete. Hekate Kourotrophos, a child's nurse.
Yes.
Which I really love.
And that is in reference to where some say that she was the nurse, the wet nurse to Zeus.
I've heard of that one before.
And the nurse who assisted Rhea to give birth to Zeus. And there are some early statues of her holding Zeus in swaddling clothes.
Oh wow.
So,
I have heard that legend before, actually. Now that you mention it, I hadn't thought about that for a long time.
And in some, she's actually Rhea herself. Hekate Rhea is one of her synchronicities.
I actually think it's really funny that she has epithets involving both Rhea and Alethea.
Yeah, I know.
Like Hera's mother and her daughter. Yeah. I really think that's very interesting.
Yeah, like I said, Hekate, I think part of it really was she was so mighty and all-encompassing and primordial, and the humans who were translating these scriptures, as you know, they say that Christians say that the apostles did, you know, that it was God speaking through them. If we look at that through that same lens, where, and they did believe this, that these weren't stories, these were scriptural, liturgical knowledge. And so there is a belief that this came, I mean, a lot of this is spoken and passed orally from oracles themselves, you know, to then be recorded down. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that there was just something in a constant, well, who is she? And it was like this constant, well, she is everything. She's the mother and the daughter. She fucking is. Yeah. And I think that's kind of why we see how she just is fucking everyone. I think that's why no deities really stepped to her. Right. Because they were like, we can't. We literally can't. Right. Because I think it also represents that she's the essence of the deities themselves. You know what I mean? Yeah. Almost how like Akasha, the Queen of the Damned. Like how Ezekiel and Akasha, if they're destroyed, then all the vampires were destroyed. Right. Like when Ezekiel is slaughtered by Akasha, his entire one line of vampires is wiped out in a splinter, you know, and then you have Akasha at that point on going for all the ones derived from her line and then picking and choosing which to keep and which to let live, you know? And so I personally think that that is, like when Marius, I think it was Marius, no, not Marius, but it was the Vampire Lestat, it talked about how one of these vampires took the mother and the father, took Akasha and Ezekiel, and dragged them out to the sun. And Marius had to like find them and rescue them. But they got dragged to the sun, and as they burned all over the world, vampires were just spontaneously bursting the flames and dying. I think maybe that's what that is. Yeah. It's like, that's why it's like, I think it's more of like, whoever Hekate is, however old and long she's been, the gods are like, we are her and she is us. Right. And so we fucking can't step to her. Yeah, exactly. I just think it's very interesting because, you know, Hekate is linked with so many other deities. Yeah. But for instance, like with Hera, who she's not directly linked with, she is linked through both her daughter and her mother. Yes. Like, I think that's very fascinating. Yes. And of course, through our bestiehood. Yeah. And I actually find that really interesting why in the Greek pantheon, and then later, so in the Roman pantheon, you know, as we know, she's Hekate Diana, she's Hekate Trivia, Trivia, and then you have Diana Trivia, Hekate Trivia, Hekate Diana, Hekate Trivia. So, like, Trivius or whatever, like, she's fucking everywhere. She's fucking everywhere. And it's just, and I think, though, that the separation, though, how she and Hera don't have a link, I think that was a purposeful, like, Zeus and I are not together. Like I said, there is something there. I also think that's been lost to time, probably destroyed by the Christians and the Jews. Exactly. I also think that there was probably, with the fact that they are not directly linked, I think that there was probably, that was also kind of an intentional thing to establish, like, respect between them. Correct. Because Hekate had nothing. Hekate and Olympus is like, could Hekate have been like, I'm the fucking queen of Olympus? Sure. Right. And everyone just had to go with it. But Hekate is like, I have no interest in hanging out with people. I am not social. I fucking, like, literally think of Daria Morgendorffer. That is Hekate. That is, like, the wandering goddess, she who roams, she who traverses all the realms, which none of the other deities could do. Right. She was the only one because she was all-encompassing. She was everything. She's the world soul, the key to the cosmos itself. Like, she is what turns everything. She was like, I don't got time. You guys are in charge. I'm leaving this to you. Right. And if you need my help, I'm there. But also, I am watching all of you. Which is why sometimes when Hera has sought revenge, Hekate has been like, oh no, honey, sweet honey child. This girl's mine. This boy's mine. Like, you might have cursed them, but I'm gonna make this curse to their benefit. Like, right. I'm going to make this work for them instead of against them, which is going to piss you the fuck off because they're going to thrive. Even while they're cursed, they're going to thrive. But obviously not everybody, because there's people that Hera goes at that Hekate does not intervene. It's like, all right. And it's not just Hera, it's all the deities. Like, she intervenes if they she needs to. But she was like, you guys, this is all yours. I want nothing to do with it. But also, eyes on you, and don't forget, I'm always watching. I know all. And I just think that that's really interesting. And I do think in part, though, it was to also establish, like, this is you, Zeus and Hera, this is your guys' fucking mountain. Right. Like, I'm leaving it to you. Yeah. And I think that that's why there is literally no sync between Hekate and Hera themselves. Right, exactly. Because it was very clear, Hekate was like, oh no, Hera is queen of Olympus. Right. And she and I do not work together. Right. She's got her own shit, and I don't want the fucking crown. I got bigger work to do. I gotta make sure everything functions for you all. Right. And then Hera was like, I'm gonna polish my crown. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Or, well, frankly, have someone else do it. Right. Not gonna sit there with a little cloth myself. Maybe the first time just so she can make sure it sparkles exactly how she wants it. But that's to then show her attendance. This is how you fucking clean it. Exactly. And although, frankly, I feel like that first time, like, she would have just enchanted it. Probably. You know what I mean? Yeah, probably. And Hazel. The next one is Hekate Kynegetus, which is leader of dogs. Yes. Dogs are very sacred to Hekate. All the Hekateans are dog moms. It's true. I was a dog mom. And I will be a dog mom again, I hope, one day. Maybe. I'm still working on that emotionally. For sure, for sure. I mean, I think that Hekate would want you to take all of the time that you personally need with them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I have no
doubt that it will happen for you.
Oh, yeah.
When that time comes. Anywho, next up, Hekate Lampadiforos or Lampadio.
Yes.
Which is bearer of a lamp.
Yes.
I like.
Yes.
That's just, it conjures up a good image.
Yeah,
you know?
it's the Witch of the Wood with
Yeah.
the lantern going through, and like that's the thing is, yeah, she's torch bearing, but not all the time. She's also a girl with fucking lamps.
Exactly.
And I will say the times that I have encountered her, where I've like seen her apparition, a lot of times it was with a lantern. And not with torches.
Yeah, weren't you just talking about when you had that experience with her?
Yes, when I went
and
through the
she appeared with a
initiation,
lamp?
correct. And she appeared with a fucking lantern and not fucking torches.
Right.
Not a torch, yeah.
Next one, ooh, this one's fun.
Oh, yes.
Hekate Mastigophoros with the whip bearer.
Yes. And that was to punish those who stepped out of line, who offended her children, who offended the gods, or who were not ready for the fucking mysteries. And where she says, again, going back to the original charge of the goddess, and those who seek to know me, know thy seeking and yearning shall avail thee not, unless thou knowest this mystery, that if that which thou seekest, thou findest not within thee, thou wilt never find it without thee. For behold, I have been with thee from the very beginning, and I am that which is attained at the end of desire. Like, and if you approach her when you are not ready, she's fucking gonna punish you.
Right.
And like that might mean like sending you some scary fucking shit that makes you like rethink ever casting a spell again or invoking her again because you don't know yourself.
Although I will have to say, when I read that epithet, I'm picturing her as a dominatrix fan.
Oh, for sure. Oh, that's what a great. I made a fucking meme, whatever once, of like a dominatrix, and I use that as a symbol for Hekate. Like,
nice.
very much.
That.
Like, Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman.
Oh, yeah.
Or Catwoman in general, who I just have always loved. That to me is, I kind of have that as like I have a Batman Returns cup over there. Oh, let me grab it. Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
So, I have this. It is the McDonald's Batman Returns collector's cup that came with your value meal, and it didn't cost extra money for it. It was just like the cup that came with your meal, and the lid was a frisbee that you could take. It was like, you could frisbee it, and it had the bat symbol on it. I don't have the lids anymore, but I do have almost all the cups. But this is, of course, the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman with her fucking whip and shit. And for me, whenever I drink out of this cup, to me, I'm drinking out of like a Hekate cup. Like, it makes me think of Hekate. Like, her Catwoman, always, especially her Catwoman, because her Catwoman exists in a liminal space. Not just between sane and crazy, but also like, she's not bad, but she's not good. She's an anti-hero. Sometimes she breaks the law, steals, but also more often than not, does the right thing. And in her own fun, destructive, chaotic way. That was art and class and style because, you know, she's Catwoman after all. She's not Harley Quinn.
Exactly. Next up, we've got Hekate Melano, which refers to quince color.
Yes.
A yellow color associated with death, or it can also mean the dark-minded.
Yes.
Which I love because you don't often see that association with yellow.
No. No.
So I really like that. I love yellow. It's one of my favorite colors.
And a lot of people are like yellow, but Hekate. So Hekate's colors are actually red, white, black, but also saffron. So in all its forms. So saffron when it's just as the Corcus, where it's fucking red.
Yeah.
And or not the Corcus, the fucking what is that called? The Stymens,
or
whatever. And those are like a dark red.
Yes.
But then once you put it in water, any hot water, you soak, whatever, you get hues of orange, yellow, gold, just depending on how long it steeps. What maybe if it's rice that you're doing, like a saffron rice, then maybe that'll, depending on the grain and its color, will be more orange, whatever. So her colors are actually these like warm, golden reds. And yes, there are dark colors in there. And she does have purples and midnight blues, and things like that, gray. But yeah, yellows and golds and oranges are actually, like I said, she's really not a dark goddess.
Right.
Like, she's really not.
I mean, I think that those colors are how I associate her as well, and I associate her so much because of those colors with that like autumnal season.
Yes, exactly.
Which obviously she will be associated with because of the thinning veil.
Right, and Samhain, and it makes sense. But instead of thinking about the colors of horror and Halloween, think about the colors of the season itself. Those are her colors.
Exactly.
Flannels, like this. That's why I'm wearing, like, I've got my pin with my black and red, because this is, you got the black and you have the saffron. And so it's like, and yeah, it still looks witchy and it's still whatever, but that's just by coincidence. But I could easily throw on, like, I could take this off and fucking put on a white shirt and, you know, fucking salmon colored pants, you know what I mean? And that's also rockin' Hekate. Like,
exactly, 100%.
And then you're gonna be like, but bitch, you're going like boating in the Hamptons. And I'll be like, yeah, well, that's
with
because
Hekate.
That's with Hekate, and that's because aside from how you combine color, like, she's actually really, really sunny.
Right, exactly. You know, it actually kind of reminds me of kind of another juxtaposition between like the differences between Hera and Hekate, and that is just regarding their times of the year and their seasons. Because it's interesting to me, you know, obviously Hekate has celebrations at all times, but she is certainly most associated with the autumnal time for most people. Who maybe don't know about her other celebrations. But certainly, like, pop culture wise, you think of Hekate, you think of like spooky season,
Right, of course, yeah.
And with Hera's sacred seasons, and I'm not talking about on the Roman side with Juno,
Right.
but just with
On the
Hera.
Hellenistic Greek side, yeah.
Right. So her celebrations kick off in January,
Yes.
and there is one every single month until August.
Yes.
After that, she fucking dips out for a damn nap.
Yeah.
Like, she does not touch that last section of the year until she comes back in January. And I think, like, just like we were talking about before, I think it's a thing of mutual respect between her and Hekate. She's like, oh, that time of year is hers. Like, we are both powerful queens, but we don't want to step on each other's toes or our areas.
Right. Well, it's really interesting too is that that it's really interesting too that in that respect, at least on the Grecian side, that you have where if the calendar was on its normal course,
right.
Hera's done in July, and
well,
then
she's got one in late August.
But is that normal?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It typically falls in late August, but on this particular year, it actually coincides with the Ides of Hekate.
Right.
But typically, it's in Virgo August.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I just think it's interesting that, like, because I guess then there is some overlap.
Yeah.
Because I would say because Hekate comes in at that
During
middle
that time.
and then goes all the way down through
Yeah.
until fucking January. Although I do actually think she has something in January.
Yeah.
But then she's kind of again until August.
That's actually very cool because it's almost as though they kind of.
And that's just obviously talking about the Grecian.
Right.
Like there are other parts of the world and pantheons that Hekate is in where she celebrated, in the spring and year round and
But that's actually kind of cool because like to me that gives the image of like they each have like their time of the year and like each one will like pass the torch to the next of their season.
Yeah.
I like that. Anyways, next one, and this one kind of corresponds with Hecate's relation to Rhea. But this one is Meter-Theon, mother of the gods, and that is also actually Rhea's only epithet. And then if you get into like Hekate Rhea and that kind of overlap, I just think that is very interesting.
Yes.
Then we've got Hekate Parthenos, the virgin.
Yes, as we talked about before, aside from just like one mention where Skyla is her daughter, Hekate has always been described as a virgin, aside from Diana Hekate with Lucifer, to bring the dawn and birth of Radia, the star the goddess of the witches. Or not goddess of it, because Radia's not the goddess of the witches, but she's like the Jesus of the witches. Before Jesus, I don't know. Anyway,
And interestingly enough, Hera also has Hera Parthenos. However, that epithet does not actually refer to her time of physical virginity. It's a reference to each year she would bathe in the river Kanathos to restore her virginity. So it's more of a like.
Oh, she was getting her pussy tight.
Yes.
It was like vaginal rejuvenation.
Yes, exactly.
Back in celestial vaginal rejuvenation.
Yes, like she would have her.
I love that girl.
Get
that tight. Get that tight, girl.
So I like that epithet because it's more like emotional, like not liturgical, but like it's more of in thought. Whereas most deities with Parthenos, like for instance Hekate or Athena Parthenos, it is about their physical virginity.
Yes.
So that's just something I find very interesting. Anyway, moving on, we've got Hekate Pd Cyclone, the source of souls.
Yes.
Interesting. Hekate Persean, daughter of Perseus.
Well, and that's the other thing. So she's like the world soul, but also her children are imbued, are to be imbued with her. But also, again, I think that hints back to something about the deities themselves and what their makeup is.
Exactly.
So
then we've got Hekate Physis of nature. I really love that. That's great. So that's one of those that I think maybe not a lot of people are aware of because like it really speaks to her status like as a goddess of the earth.
Yes. Well, a lot of people don't know that she's a lover of deer, and that deer, not just people just think a lot of like bulls and rams, but no, actually also deer. She's actually not just,
I didn't know
and
that
it might
either.
be through her connection with Artemis. Some people think they don't know Hekate Artemis, but I have the second Orphic hymn to her refers to her love of deer.
Oh, that is really cool.
And I've always had deer has been a thing in my family, my great grandfather. Like it's just deer has always been symbolic and very important.
Cool.
And the sighting of deer, I encountered deer a lot, urban deer, and I have a lot of crazy interactions with them where like I literally they'll walk right past me and
I've seen that happen to you.
And it happens it happens to my partner and I all the time. Deer, since the minute he and I started dating in 2020, deer have appeared to us, have encountered us, have given us good omens and blessings. We had that incident with the stag, that one Christmas in the fog, and I just go, and it wasn't until, no joke, and I have on my altar, because of the significance of deer for me, I came across a resin replica of deer antlers that immediately I was just like, oh, this is for her altar, and like it works perfectly. But I didn't even know it then until literally a month ago. I discovered the second Orphic hymn to Hekate that referred to her as a lover of deer lover. And I was like I said, this is never ending shit in synchronicities and things that you discover and learn. And then you're like, oh, now that all makes sense. I've associated deer with Hekate this entire time, but I've never ever come across anything other than her as Hekate Artemis. but then to find an invocation to her, and it's just one of the second it's just a second Orphic hymn.
Yeah.
So it's not Hekate Artemis, it's just a second Orphic hymn to
Yeah.
Hekate, and it associates her there as well as with deer, independent of Artemis.
Oh,
So yeah,
I love
anyway,
that.
continue.
I mean, don't you love when you associate like your matron deity with something and you're not really sure why, and then you find the evidence?
Sometimes
I
decades
love
later,
that.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
actually just happened to me recently with Hera and her serpent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which this episode is a Hekate episode.
Yes.
This is more of an in-depth conversation, so
For sure.
that is a
We'll
story
save
for
it
another
for
time.
the next couple of episodes for sure. We're going to have a synchronicity discussion.
Yes. I mean, if I, like, as I'm running down
And Gnostic knowledge, I
Yes.
think, it's hand in hand, like synchronicities in tune with Gnostic knowledge that you have about things like that example of the deer, and then maybe 20, 30 years later, you finally come across something scriptural
that proves
that's
it.
thousands of
Yeah.
years old that proves it.
Mhm.
And so, yes, I think we need to actually talk about that in depth.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. I know, obviously, as I'm running down this list, if I see epithets that they share, I'm going to say something.
For
but
sure.
this specific story, it's in depth and involved, and we don't have time to get
No.
into that right now, but I do think it's cool.
Yes.
Because I think I had that same kind of experience with Hera and the serpents that you had with Hekate and the deer, and I just
Yes.
really think those moments are so special. It's like, it feels like it's messaging from them saying that, you know, our paths of education in their name are leading us in the right direction.
Yes.
You know, that's what I think. Anyway, so moving on, we've got Hekate Phosphorus, Hekate of the Luminous Light, which I think is just beautiful. It's a stunning image.
Yes.
Hekate Propolos, the guide or companion.
Mm-hmm.
Hekate Propylaea, before the gate.
Yes.
Hekate Sotera, the savior.
Yeah. The Sotira. Yeah.
Actually, oddly enough, Juno has one, Juno Sospita, that also means the savior.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
But in like Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hekate Skylakitis, protector of dogs.
Yes.
Hekate Tauropolos, bull-faced.
Mm-hmm.
Something for those Taurus Hecateans.
Yes.
Hekate Trimorphos or Trimorphis, so three-formed. Hekate Trioditis, 3 rows.
Mhm.
And then Hekate Trivia, 3 wings.
Yes. So those are just a few. We also have Hekate Astrodia Clodocos, keeper of the stars. Then Hekate Proteus, Hekate of the sun, the light bringer, light bearer. Hekate Lucifera,
Yeah.
in Italy, which would be Dawnbringer, morning star. She's also known as the All-Mother,
Oh, wow.
which she pretty much only shares with Gaia and Kybele.
Yeah.
Not a lot of deities have the All-Mother for I, and again, it goes back to the charge for I am she
Yeah.
with a capital S. I am all in, like, again, there's so much more. But before we move forward with, because we do want to get into, Avanna's going to get into and share with us her synchronicities, but a lot of them are witchcraft connected. And so for that, we figured moving forward, we need to have a change of scenery.
Yes.
It's time to get into the more
Spooky side.
aspects of
Witchy,
Hekate,
yeah.
including what she has to say about Christianity. And why are we waiting? Because a lot of how we know her now is because of the Christians and Christianity. So all of this works in a different location. So to set the mood, we're going to do that. But first, I think we need a change of outfit
I think we do.
before we have a change of scenery. So give us a minute.
Perfect.
Totally perfect.
Oh, yes.
But I feel like something's missing.
What is it? Oh, I know. We need our sunglasses.
Right. Perfect. All right.
Now we're ready to go.
Now we're ready to go. So come join us as we get to a more fitting environment to learn about Hekate, the queen of witchcraft, ghosts,
And the spooky
and
stuff.
all the spooky spook. All right.
Okay, here we are.
That's better. As you can see, we're in a graveyard.
We are.
And we thought this was the perfect place to talk about the Hekate that we most famously know about.
Yes.
As we saw, clearly she has primordial great mother goddess, supreme universal deity, creation origins. But now we're going to get into why she is the mother of witches and death and necromancy and enemy number 1 of the Christian church.
Whoop whoop. I mean, anyone who's an enemy of the Christian church is okay in my book.
Exactly. And oh, these bushels of lavender we've had in the entire show.
Yes.
We brought with us
We
to on our
did.
journey, and we will get into the many herbs and things associated with her, including
Exactly.
lavender.
So you just remember that every time you're ordering a lavender latte from the local coffee shop.
Especially if it's like a honey lavender latte.
Oh, yeah.
Then that's like,
It's like
that can be
boom,
working
boom.
blessings and magic for you too on that.
Exactly. So without further ado, let's get into a kind of discussion on the other deities that Hekate is linked with.
Mhm.
So starting with our favorite friend, Kybele.
Yes. We've covered her. Yeah.
Yes. We got into that a little bit more earlier in the episode, but for now, we will keep it to the same pantheon that we've been discussing. So firstly, a deity that we would like to discuss her link with is Artemis or Diana.
Yes.
They were sort of linked together. They have quite a few of their epithets in common, actually, including things like Sotera, Enodia, Elethea, showing up again.
Yes, there she is again.
She's making the rounds, girl. Persia, Kore, Tauropolos, Parthenos, etc., etc. There's actually so many more of them, but I didn't want to list them all out right now. Interestingly enough, she was celebrated as Artemis Hekate during the month of Munikia, which is the 4th month of the Hellenic calendar.
Oh, okay.
Also my birthday month.
Oh, so April.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it typically will fall during like April to May, depending on just when the calendar is falling that year.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Now, I personally observe Hera as well during this time because it's the 4th month of the year, and not only is it a multiple of 8, but she has 4 forms as well. So I personally do honor her during this time, but it is the name Munikia or Munikion, whichever you prefer, either one is correct, is derived from Artemis's name. She's kind of the driving force behind like why the month was named.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so that is known as like very much her time of the year, which I really like. As an April baby, I really love that. That not only is it, connected of course with Hera, but with also Artemis. And I just really love that. And of course, by way of Artemis, also connected with Hekate. So yeah, as far as being born in that season of the year, I just really feel like that fits the April babies.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So interestingly enough, there was a full moon festival on the 16th day of Munikion, honoring specifically that Artemis Hekate link.
Yeah.
There would be cakes offered to the goddess, just like the ones that
we are making a delicious witch.
Exactly. There would also be crossroad offerings dedicated to Hekate during this festival. There would be certain symbols such as dogs, hunting bows, bees, trees, and serpents left for her. Yeah, so that is kind of the summary of her
Artemis,
her link with Artemis, which is really cool. Okay, so moving on to the next goddess. There are so many of these, and I just find it so fascinating how, like, if you were drawing like a diagram of everything that she is connected to, it would be like,
I know, all over the fucking world in every culture.
Like that meme of the guy standing in front of like a diagram that he's drawing.
Right, what is it? From Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, I never actually knew where it was from.
I literally just learned that like 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
I never knew where it came from. No, neither.
But yeah, I feel like if we were actually we are explaining all of the different ways that she's linked with all of these other deities, and we probably do look like that guy right now.
Probably. Deity conspiracy theory chart guy. Yeah.
Exactly.
All connected.
So the next one to go over is Bendy's, or is it Bendis? I'm not sure. Bendy's. Okay. I'm gonna do my Bendy anyway.
Yes.
She, like Hekate, is considered to be a benevolent mother goddess. She is also merged with Artemis, just like Hekate. Yes. She is a lunar goddess who is the mother of the god Sabazius, who is likened to Dionysus, which is interesting. She's typically depicted with 2 spears, and Hekate also bears a spear in depictions. Interestingly enough, by the 5th century BCE, when Bendy's worships had spread to Athens, Hecate's cult was gaining in popularity in the same city. So with them both kind of arriving and building their worship and their devotions at the same location at the same time, they did sort of become very blended with each other in the minds of people, which I find very interesting. I love that kind of like historical accounts of just how these associations happened,
Yeah, exactly.
So next up, we've got Bona Dea, who, again, like Hekate, is a goddess of the other world, the netherworld. I do find these deities who hold dominion over that area very, very interesting.
Yes.
Yes. She's also known as the Roman Virgin Goddess.
Yes.
They both are associated with snakes, knowledge of pharmakeia, and as well as healing. Interestingly, the identity of Bona Dea was considered to be an initiatory secret. So,
yes, a mystery.
Yes, you only would get to know if you were in her service and close to her and privy to her mysteries. She was obviously, of course, linked to the worship of not only with Hekate, but as well as Demeter, Ceres, and Medea. And actually several other goddesses as well.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting how that all kind of breaks down.
Yeah.
So next up, we've got Primo, which as well is one of Hecate's epithets.
Yes.
I do find it interesting that like several epithets to deities are deities in their own right.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
I know, yeah.
I think that's interesting when that happens because like when you first start studying them and their mysteries, you don't always know that. And you do think at first that it may be just an aspect of them, but it turns out that it's a completely other deity that they've merged with.
I sometimes think it's like almost like the movie Covenant or Minecraft, when like they have to pass on the power to their kid, and like they have to like relinquish or give it up. And I almost feel like when it's like a deity is like, worship and belief is what feeds them. And if maybe society is going, Bona Dea and Hekate arrived at the same time,
Mhm.
but like maybe like there was more attention going to Hekate,
Yeah.
and so over time it was like I give myself to you, like,
Mhm.
and so that's kind of how I feel like that's how then it becomes their mantle, their epithet, is because they have now, that deity has like passed themselves on to that other deity or whatever.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So Brima was a name that was given to a Thessalian. Thessalian.
Yeah.
Brima was a name that was given to a Thessalian goddess of the underworld. Her name would typically be invoked in conjunction with Hekate.
Mhm.
From the kind of around the 5th century BCE onward. It was also given as an epithet of both Persephone and Demeter, as well as Cybele, so bringing it on back to her again.
Yes.
Brimo is translated as terrifying.
Yes.
So Hekate Brimo would refer to Hekate the terrifying.
One, yeah.
In the Orphic gold tablets, Brimo is a name that's used forming a trio between Demeter, Persephone, and Hekate. This is known as the Eleusinian trio,
Yes.
Which is very interesting. I like that. It kind of opens up a conversation about Hecate's role at Eleusis,
Yes.
Which is
We will be getting into
we'll
with
definitely
the
be getting into
the witchcraft.
Yeah, but it's all just very, very fascinating, and how deep it goes, and
Yes.
how many generations that it goes.
Yes.
Okay, and so just to briefly get into a little more deeply on the connection with Demeter and Persephone.
Yes, please. I think we all would like to know that.
Oh yes.
Since it's so conflated all the time.
Oh yeah, all the
It is.
time. It definitely is. So like we were just explaining, they were typically seen sometimes as a trio of goddesses, which makes sense why over the centuries they kind of became in people's minds the Maiden Mother Crone situation. And it's interesting just seeing how that originally started. They were 3 different deities making up one trio,
Yes.
but they were not originally the same deity.
No.
So it's interesting how these things kind of get misconstrued across the centuries.
Yeah, I don't conflate the 3 of them together
Oh
in
no,
any way,
not at
shape, or
all.
form.
I don't either.
I know them as 3 separate deities who formulate the Eleusinian priestesses.
Yes. And certainly they share some of the same epithets,
Yes.
but that does not make them the same
No.
deity.
Hekate was triple formed on her own.
Exactly. So interestingly, they are all depicted with torches. So I think that's another thing that kind of leads to that conflation.
Yes.
Is not only do they share certain epithets in common, but they also have
Chanel.
They also have Chanel. Yes.
They also have Chanel.
That was exactly what I was going to say.
Exactly.
But they also have similar sacred symbols that are shared among the 3.
Yeah.
So it totally makes sense.
Oh, for sure.
How this happened, but I just think it's interesting seeing those kind of roots of how it happened. All 3 are also associated with both the poppy and the grain.
Yes.
The pomegranate. Both Hekate and Demeter are sometimes known as daughters of Zeus. In certain legends, that's the way it's written, and then sometimes not.
Right.
And then of course, until Persephone's abduction, she is always described as a virgin, as is Hekate.
Right.
So yeah, you really do see the
kind of where they
the
all
pathways,
conflate. Yeah.
And now, of course, we've already gone into the Greek side of Artemis, but Diana is another aspect who gets
Synchronicity,
who gets conflated with Hekate often. So Diana also has the epithet Trivia, as says Hekate, Trivia, and Diana Trivia. So that's another way that they kind of get looped in together. But as we've said enough times to beat a dead horse, sharing the epithet doesn't make them the same deity. Louder for the cheap seats in the back.
Correct.
Horace also named Diana as Diva Triformis, leading further into the parallels of Hekate.
Well, and I think honestly, Diana is just another name for Hekate. I just think it's just like with Isis, I just think it's the same. It's just her with a different name through the people, but it's just the same
that can also
deity.
happen as well.
Yes.
Like, certain deities, while they share many things in common, including their sacred symbols and epithets, but they are different entities.
Yeah.
But it can also happen that this new name was born for the same entity in their worship in a different area of the world.
And now is everyone going to be like, oh, are you saying that all these deities, it's just actually Hekate? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's probably Cybele.
Right.
And because like I said earlier, Hekate and Hermes kind of basically started out as a triplicate form or attendant of Cybele aspect. And I think that, if anything, Hekate, Diana, well, these are all aspects of the names of Cybele.
Yes.
That's what I think. I think this is all Cybele, Hekate, Cybele, and I've talked about this from day one.
Oh, yeah.
Even in my brain, the letters, the phonetics of Hekate and Cybele, I see almost as if Hekate was derived from the spelling of Cybele.
Oh, yeah.
And the same thing with Hermes. I see Hermes, I see the connection to Cybele.
Oh,
and and you're like, what? I know it sounds weird, but just imagine it in your head. You can kind of see where maybe they derived from that, and that was that Kibble was the main like center pillar of this triplet.
Oh, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so yeah, but anyway.
And I mean, certainly in many like locations across Rome, she was worshipped as Diana Hekate.
Yes.
You know, so there was definitely kind of a more close merge of these two than with many of the others.
Right. I mean, it's just like you literally have Isis Hekate or Hekate Isis, and they are one and the same.
Exactly.
Like, and it's very different from just being conflated or loose linked via epithet.
Exactly. Now the festival in her honor, Numeralia,
Yes.
that coincides with your birthday.
Yes.
That was to do with both of them as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. That was specifically a celebration for Diana Hekate. And then on the 15th day, and this was also for the Ides of Hekate, or the Hecatean Ides, as well as the Festival of Torches. And these all took place in Turkey, Greece, Italy, all during 13, 14, 15th of August. And the 15th specifically was about her as Queen of Heaven,
Yes.
Keeper of the Stars, Queen of Heaven, Mother of all gods and man. And then, as we stated, it became, by the Catholics, adopted into the Assumption of the Virgin Mary, where she ascends to heaven as the Queen of Heaven, Mary, Mother of God.
Right.
And then again, Santa Morte, which we will also briefly
we
get
will
into.
get into,
And then
yes.
next year, we'll actually devote to
Yeah,
her.
we will get more deeply into
This
it.
will just be more about connection to her in Santa Morte.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have time to get into all of that, but
No.
rest assured, it will happen in the future.
Yeah, and in Santa Morte kind of just deserves her own special, her own
for
episode.
sure, for sure. Now, of course, Diana and Hekate were both associated with witchcraft and the practice of magic. For instance, they are both tied again in Aradia Hospital of the Witches. Yes. In Britain, actually, there is evidence of Diana's worship during the Roman era, which is very interesting. I guess like that kind of makes it make further sense why so many of Hecate's male forms of Hecateros are in Ireland, the UK,
that area, yeah.
that entire area, England, Wales, all of that. So that probably actually stems from that initial worship of Diana and Hekate at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I love that. Diana did kind of have a foothold in Britain for several centuries after the Roman Empire. Stories of her were still being told orally and passed down to successive generations, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I just think so much of these stories are going to be, even though there are obviously written accounts of them, I think the really lasting impact is going to be through oral history.
Oh, of course. I agree.
Diana and Hekate were both linked as the fairy queen in Scottish folklore as well. So it's kind of at that point, in conjunction with also being demonized by the church by that time, it's at that point that association with her as like the spooky queen of witchcraft kind of began to take root.
Right.
Which is interesting because if you think about that part of the world in that time, it was very... It would have seen her and the practice of witchcraft in general in a very negative light.
Right. Exactly.
Very patriarchal. So I love that her stories continue to be passed down even in these places at times where, witches obviously were not safe.
Right.
But it makes sense when you follow kind of her path of worship, why at a certain point in history she did kind of begin to take on a negative connotation when she was referred to in folklore or in works of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next one that we're going to get into is Enodia.
Oh yes, the waves, the road, yes.
So this is another one where her name also became one of Hecate's epithets. As you can imagine, Enodia was a goddess of crossroads, associated with the underworld, but also roads in general. Yes. She was worshipped alongside with Zeus in Thessaly before the 5th century BCE, so going back quite a while.
Yeah.
Her name translates as in the road. So as far as I'm aware, worship of her likely would have started outside.
Right.
And actually predated the building of sanctuaries and temples and things like that, which just really shows you how old she is.
Yes.
It's just crazy to think about.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You think about Kibble, Chatahoyuk, that whole area. That was the first thing where humans gathered and created something, built something. It wasn't for home. It wasn't. They built a temple.
Yeah.
No, hello, bee. Perfect.
Yay. And interestingly, like I think the evolution of the temple is really cool. How it obviously would have begun outdoors, and then as temples began to be more common, they still had they didn't have roofs. It was just you would look up and there would be the sky.
Yes.
And then they began to be enclosed.
Yes.
actually a little tidbit from me is that Hera was actually the first deity to have an enclosed temple.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Probably to do with the absolute smut that she demanded to be displayed in her temple.
Probably.
Not trying to have the clouds peep in on that.
No.
Anyway, back to Inutia.
Yes.
As you can imagine, many of her sacred animals she shares again with Hekate, such as bulls, snakes, dogs, and horses.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, fun fact, a nightmare is originally thought to be Hecate's form.
Really?
Her horse form.
Oh wow.
And that she could bestow good dreams or night terrors to punish those who needed to be punished.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know
So
that.
then that's where the nightmare, specifically a nightmare, is specifically Hekate.
So like the nightmare is bringing you either like a blessing or a curse.
Correct.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. See, we're all full of new facts here. I'm telling you.
Exactly. Oh, it's interesting. I'm reading through some of our research that we conducted, and what you just brought up actually was the nightmare story
Oh,
that
shit,
was
look
showing
at
up next. So just like with Hekate, dogs were sacrificed to Inutia at one point. These were rituals to purify.
Mm-hmm.
It was not necessarily, you know, a kind of a daily thing.
Right.
But it was something that
in
was
case of
done.
emergency.
Yeah, it was something that was done under times of need. Which I think that that's an important conversation as well, because I feel that a lot of the times when animal sacrifices are brought up as related to witchcraft by Christians, like they are framing it as though it was something that was done all the time without thought and without purpose,
Right.
and that was not the case.
Yeah, no.
You know, Inutia was also associated with ghosts as well as with Hekate. When Inutia was included as one of the...
Oops, that's yours.
Oh, shoot. Did you notice because of my lipstick stain?
No stickers.
Oh. Anyway, so when Inutia was included as one of the 12 Olympian gods, interestingly, her association with ghosts and magic, which up until then had been very prevalent, was sort of brushed under the rug a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah. Which, of course, you know, Greece at that time, as it still is a little bit today, was very patriarchal.
Yes.
So it doesn't surprise me very much that that was kind of not discussed at the forefront of her worship as much.
Right,
you know?
yeah.
In addition to her name being used as an epithet for Hekate, Inutia was also used as an epithet for both Artemis and Persephone.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, everything is kind of making more and more sense as to why they're so blended with each other.
Yeah.
You know.
And a lot of these goddesses seem like they're older goddesses.
Oh yeah.
In the area, a lot of times, such as like Bonadea, who showed up at the same time with Hekate.
Yeah.
It seems a lot of these are older. So again, I go back to that covenant, mancraft, where it's like they're just not getting enough prayer offerings and shit anymore, so they're weakening. And Hecate's like, I'll carry you.
Right.
Like, you will still live and continue through me.
Yes.
Like, I got you. Like,
Exactly.
that's kind of what it seems like, you know? She's like, there's 3 of me, there's 4 of me. Like, I got arms, girl. I can carry all of you. Like,
Exactly. Another one that we wanted to discuss on this list is Selene.
yes.
Who of course would also be conflated with Artemis as well,
Yes.
being a moon goddess
Yes.
and a goddess of the witcheries.
Yes.
Hekate, as we mentioned briefly before, is sometimes referred to as Mene, who is one of the 50 daughters of Selene. Mene was the name of the daughter of Selene who presided over the months, which were calculated by the phases of the moon.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
Yes. That might be one of the reasons of the moon connection.
Yeah, exactly. I love seeing the actual root of these connections that have just existed for so many centuries and eons that no one really knows what they are anymore. Like no one thinks about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just interesting to see where that actually stems from. So in the Metamorphoses, Hekate is mentioned as one of the names of the Egyptian goddess Isis.
Yes.
Which is interesting. I know we will get deeper into the whole Isis connection at a later time, but it's just a lot of information
For sure.
to include in such an already heavy episode.
Oh no, we're gonna get into that when we start talking about the witchcraft.
Okay.
So I'm gonna
gotcha,
talk
gotcha.
about that.
You're gonna talk about that.
I'm
okay.
gonna talk about Isis and Egypt, and she's got connection to Osiris and Anubis, and so there's a whole.
Right.
She got a whole Egyptian life.
Oh yeah. I mean, you would be hard pressed, I think, to find any country in the world that didn't have some incarnation of her.
Yeah,
you know?
you do. You find her everywhere, and like I always say, like depending on where she is, even though I understand that like that's kind of still her in an incarnation, I still also treat that deity separate.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And specific to that power and their drag, their dress, their visage in that area and through that cultural lens.
It's really interesting. So we did touch on this briefly, but another, trio of deities that Hekate is associated with is the fates.
Yes. Like he says, the tropos.
Yes.
Yes. Closest to Lachesis and Necropolis.
Yes.
Yeah. The Aries.
Yes, the Aries.
Aries, yes. I was sitting on a holly leaf
oh my
this
gosh,
entire time.
I was doing it earlier.
Ugh.
Which is very interesting because Arenis is actually one of Demeter's epithets.
Yes.
Referring to her vengeance and fury.
Yes.
Obviously, during the time when she was searching for her daughter. So I find it interesting that that the Fates, or also known as the Furies, of course, alternately.
Yes.
Had that same root in their name as well.
Yes.
Which again, just kind of further proves the point of them being all kind of mixed together with each other, you know? So of course, the function of the Arenes is to uphold a natural balance, to protect strangers and firstborn children specifically, as well as to punish oath breakers.
Warlocks.
They are the
Warlocks, oath breakers. Not male witches.
Exactly. And they are the primordial forces of nature, which I think is 100% true.
Yes.
Now, of course, they are 3 women, again, so that kind of leads to the depiction of Hekate in 3s.
Yes.
Or at least it's one incarnation that's used.
Many hundreds, for her, yeah.
I misspoke, I wouldn't necessarily say it leads to it, but it adds to it.
It adds to it, for sure, yeah.
So they all had torches, swords, and whips, so yes, very Hecatean, right?
Yes.
They would carry spears and snakes,
yes.
Which she's also associated with. Interestingly enough, this is another name nerd moment, but the name Geraldine means power of the spear.
Interesting.
So, see, here's another Hecatean name that doesn't seem like it.
Right, no, that's amazing.
Now, moving on, so the Arenes obviously also represent just like a natural balance between, you know, chaos and justice.
Yes.
Which I think is, actually that kind of goes back to each of the two. And those kind of, her living in those kind of liminal spaces and just moments of choice and 2 paths to be taken, you know. They were described as eternal virgins. This was to ensure they would be incorruptible and that their powers would not be affected by any outside forces.
Right.
Like touching man.
I mean, yeah.
Anyway. Now, of course, this is another thing that adds to the comparison, as Hekate is also a virgin goddess, as is Diana and Artemis.
Yes. And Artemis also has some lesbian stories and situations.
Exactly. And interactions where she was seen as the love interest of a man she did not want it.
Yes.
She was not interested at all.
Yeah. Which again is another queer connection outside of her like gay male aspects, deity aspects like Hermes and Apollo and shit. She also has like aspects that are lesbian. So it's like again another like Hekate loves the homos. And in fact, we're not doing this in spellcraft because spellcraft is gonna be awesome, but I just briefly, and I will get to it when we talk about her witchcraft. So in her spellcraft of the episode, but specifically, I have a specific example of a gay like spell invocation, love spell to Hekate to share.
Ooh, really?
That was discovered by archaeologists. Yes, and it was the same sex. Like so, it's the same sex love spell that was
that is really cool.
from one of her male devotees. Invoking her specifically. So yeah,
I
told you this show, this episode is awesome. This episode is awesome.
So that was all of the synchronicities with other deities that we really wanted to discuss. Now, I say this with the caveat that there are so many others to be found looking into the mysteries of Hekate, but these are just like the most important ones that we really wanted to share with you today. So we hope that you enjoyed this little segment, and without further ado, what are we doing next?
So I know, you're like, when are we getting to all the witchcraft? When are we getting to like the spooky shit with her? We are, but we had to transition from her origins and out, and so before we get into the hacks inside of her, we are going to go do Delicious Witch and show you how in ancient times, when it was still a temple situation with her, you know, they would make cakes for her and make offerings, which we do now. So we thought that would be a good transition point. Nice little bridge, because you still make cakes and offerings to her to this day, as they did then in the temple. So without further ado, we're gonna go do Delicious Witch and make some delicious honey, almond, poppy seed, Hekate cupcakes.
Yum!
So welcome to Delicious Witch. As we said, we are making a honey almond Hekate cake, except we are converting it to cupcakes with buttercream frosting. Reason being is cupcakes are kind of cuter, and also I can't probably store a full cake. Like I can store some cupcakes right now. So there you go.
Welcome to the Heka cupcakes.
Yes. this is a perfect way not only just to celebrate the Ides of Hekate, but I mean, a honey almond cake is just kind of summery and just delicious. It's different, really popular in Italy and Greece and Turkey, throughout the Mediterranean. Sometimes you'll find that a lot of times you'll find that they're like also olive oil cakes, so they'll like have olive oil. This is not. This is butter based, not olive oil for that fatty loosiness. So really quick, you will need a bowl for your wet ingredients, a bowl for your dry ingredients, 4 duck eggs. You can use 4 chicken eggs if you can't find duck eggs, but there's a golden richness with duck eggs that the cake really shines with. A 1/4 cup plain Greek yogurt, 1 cup honey. We have here Greek honey, a 1/4 cup of poppy seed, 1/2 cup sliced almond, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 cups all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup butter. I'm using a honey butter for extra honey flavor, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cardamom, 1/4 cup poppy seed. We have some buttercream frosting to top our Hekate cupcakes with. Again, we are just using a regular Hekate cake recipe and just doing it for cupcakes. And that is all you need in terms of your wet and dry ingredients for this Hekate honey cake. So once you've done that, it's really easy. You take all the wet ingredients, your eggs, your honey, your butter, I think that's it, aside from the yogurt, which gets put in at the end, you put it all in one bowl.
See, that's what I love about this cake. It's so simple and yet so delicious.
Yeah, and then you just put all your dry ingredients, so your cardamom, your almond, half of your 1/2 cup almonds, we'll put in here, your poppy seed, your all-purpose flour, your salt, and your baking soda. And it's there. It's just there.
It is there.
And it all goes one to the other. Like I said, we're doing cupcakes. You can do mini cupcakes or you can do large. You don't really have to change the recipe from cake to cupcake. The only thing you have to do is just remember that the cake itself takes, if you're doing a 9-inch round cake, like the original recipe usually calls for, it's about 50 to 60 minutes baking time at 325 degrees. Same thing here, except instead of 50 to 60 minutes, we're looking at 15 to 25 minutes. So you'll just, depending on your oven, you'll just want to monitor. But that's it. We have our little muffin cups, cupcake cups in there, and each one has the other remaining of your 1/2 cup almond. So remember, 1/4 of your 1/2 cup almond goes in here, the other 1/4 you're just going to split amongst your cups and just sprinkle them in. Then the fun part, the man, whisk up our wet ingredients. I'm going to whisk up together our dry ingredients.
But I'll get them.
Duck eggs are a tough cookie. And in fact, actually, here, this will give you more oomph. I'll just slide that off, like, do that.
Oh,
Get all that good shit off. Keep that in. There you go.
thank you.
Again, make sure all your utensils are always clean. Make sure your hands are always clean before you start cooking. Make sure you're always properly washing, and warm water, antibacterial soap. So you just use dishwashing soap like Dawn. That's obviously the best thing. Actually, I'm going to show you.
Okay.
So you can get that whisked up in this last little bit.
You.
Just, you really want to get it in there. Whisk, 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 whisk. Alright, let me see it. So once that's all properly whisked, give it one last final boo. Make sure all our butter is down in there. Now the recipe is an old kind. A lot of times with older recipes, they don't tell you everything. So it didn't say whether the butter should be melted or softened. I assumed softened, so I just softened it. So you will, if you do that, you are going to see some like butter lumps in your wet ingredient mix. That's fine. It's all going to melt in the oven, and it's going to help your muffins, your cupcakes rise. Think, please. Now we just want to fold this in with our dry and wet ingredients. Do it slowly at first when you get in there because you don't want flour and shit going everywhere.
As it tends to do.
Yes.
A haunting from our lobster tails from a few episodes.
Right. All right. Last but not least, we're going to do a 1/4 cup of Greek yogurt. Do a nice rounded one. It doesn't have to be like even. It can be like a nice chunky rounded. Just make sure you're using a 1/4 cup. Get all of that in there. Again, make sure clean hands. And if you burp, make sure you say excuse me.
Exactly. Otherwise, the demons will get you.
Exactly. Always be considerate and polite in the witch's kitchen. Okay, so now we're gonna fold in our yogurt. starting from under and just working it upwards because you want to really get the aeration going. You don't want to deflate the airiness of your yogurt. You want to make sure it gives your cupcakes a really nice lift. It's like folding a moose.
Exactly.
The chocolate, not the animal walking through the forest
right.
type.
I don't think they would fold very easily.
No. All right.
Unless they really wanted to come on a trip with you in your suitcase.
It's true, it's true. Now, because I'm a little sneak. We're gonna add a little bit of that bourbon vanilla bean. Can you hand me? Just got a shitty spoon from the second bottle. Perfect. Okay. Ah, perfect. And it's a teaspoon.
Okay.
A teaspoon of bourbon vanilla bean paste. Again, you just have vanilla extract, you can use that, or just leave it out. You don't have to put it. I just like how vanilla enhances certain like lighter cakes, you know, where it's like chocolate and coffee, especially coffee, like enhances darker things.
Right.
And red wine, you know, vanilla does the same thing. Okay. Get her stirred up. And that vanilla will awaken that honey even more.
Yeah, and the yogurt.
Yep. Okay. Now to make it easy, just get this off your spatchy. You can just use your finger, or you can use a spoon, you can use another spatula, obviously whatever. No kid gloves in my house, so it's not that nice. Oh, yeah.
Yummy.
Good batter. And it's not too sweet. It's not going to be too sweet of a cupcake, even with the buttercream frosting. So if you have people in your life who are like not super into sweet things, you have people in your coven, your circle, who are like usually not super into like super sweet things, then this is a good place for them.
I am that person.
Yes. And I'm becoming that person. I do, except like, I do have my moments of decadence, and I do love something dark, rich, and sweet, and I love ice cream. But in general, I really reduced the amount of sugar in my life, so now I really notice when something's super sugary.
Definitely.
So just take your ice cream scoop, or the regular spoon, however you want to do it. I don't have one of those ice cream scoops that have those like pressy things to help slide shit out. I wish I did. So this is going to be a bitch. But that's alright, because I'm a bitch too. So you just want to get it in your muffin cups. If you spill on the side, it's fine. It happens. Just wipe it off before you put it in.
Right.
But even things that say they're non-stick, I don't know. They're never non-stick.
Exactly.
They are for like a week.
Right. You really see the honey in that batter.
Yeah, you can. Now, the batter for 12 big cupcakes technically will work because it's not going to rise too terribly, so you're not going to have too much overage. Now, to make them smaller, then one recipe will do 24 mini cupcakes.
Or if you're doing those mega cupcakes, then 6.
Yes, exactly. And that's that. Right, and when that's all done, oh, can you give me that vegetable oil?
Possibly.
You're gonna take your vegetable oil spray. We're just gonna go over it lightly. That way, if any does come over the edge and poof up really big, then we can get the whole thing out. All right, into the oven, and we're gonna check them in 20 minutes. After I get this other pan. That's just in there, out of the oven. We're gonna set our timer for 20 minutes. And we'll be back to check on our cupcakes in 20.
Yeah.
All right, so put them in the oven. They baked for, I checked them at 20 minutes, and then took just your regular toothpick, do the check the clean method. I think we all know that by now.
Right.
Just take a toothpick, stick it into the middle of the highest point, peak point of your cupcake, just put it all the way through. If it comes out totally clean, then they're done. If it's still a little gooey, put it in for another 5 minutes or 6 minutes. I did 6, put them in for 6 minutes. They're perfect. We've let them cool for 10 minutes. Now that's done. It's time to frost, top, and finish them off. So let's get our cupcake. Now they're peaking like this at the top, which I think is awesome because it makes me think of a beehive.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take our little beehives and take our buttercream frosting with our knife, and we're just gonna frost this up.
Also kind of makes me think of like a hill.
Yes.
See, I love this buttercream frosting with this because it actually kind of looks like a whipped honey,
It really does. It looks like a whipped honey, like or honey butter.
Yeah.
Now, there's 2 types of honey butter. There's honey butter, which is whipped whipped honey, and it's like creamy and cloudy and delicious, and that's, again, either called honey butter or they'll call it whipped honey, which is what that is. And then there's like what we use, an actual like honey butter, where it's butter mixed with honey. All right, so once you've frosted it to your satisfaction.
I want a little bit more on mine.
Okay. We've got our cupcakes. Next, little garnish with some almond right on top.
So we just gotta be a little extra, no thanks.
You know what's in it.
Yay!
All right, and there you have it. Honey almond Hekate cake done as cupcakes.
Yes.
Again, you can do it either way, but cupcakes are cute.
Exactly.
So we hope that you enjoy them, and they make great offerings, of course, obviously, to HEKA-TEA.
Oh, definitely. Plus, it's easier to offer on an altar a little cupcake rather than an entire cake.
Right, or a slice of cake
Right.
or whatever. Cupcake, way better. And share it with your coven, share it with your circle, share it with your friends and family. It's got all those just wonderful, made in Hecate's honor, and it's a perfect way to celebrate the Ides of Hekate. Again, because it's my birthday, this is also going to be my birthday. I'm going to make it again for my birthday cake.
Exactly.
So, enjoy! Well, those are so good.
Oh, they were. I could just eat them all day.
Now remember, you can do them as a 9-inch round cake in a springform pan, or you can do them like we did as cupcakes. Depending on if you like a lighter cupcake or if you like denser cakes, and I don't mean like in a bad way, I just mean like if you just like, some people like a squishier cake, and other people like a lighter, fluffier. If you like a lighter, fluffier cupcake, then cut the recipe in half. If you like a fuller cupcake, then just keep the recipe as is. But oh my god, it's so fucking delicious. So good.
If you like a more buxom cupcake.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so here we are, now getting to all the other shit.
Exactly. I put my jacket on because it's getting a little chilly up in the cemetery.
So, getting into her as mother of witches, goddess of witches, witches, etc. Yes, we owe a lot to that, to the proliferation of that in a negative way to Christianity.
Yes.
But where that kind of begins, where we can find its closest roots, also answers the question of, well, did she have children or not?
Right.
So we're gonna meet the daughters, Skyla, Circe, and Medea. So the first things first, we need to tackle virgin wife, mother, just a girl who got around and had a good time. She's kind of always been a wandering, independent goddess. Most of the time, she is described as a virgin or maiden goddess. But then there are times she's linked to male gods and might have had children with them. Throughout history, she was continued to be described as a virginal goddess. In the 3rd century CE, Lycophron, Hekate is described as the maiden daughter of Perseus, Remo Trimorphus. In the Greek magical papyri, which is one of those liturgical ancient spellbooks, so the Eleusinian mysteries are separate of the Greek magical papyri. So again, we find these ancient documents where Hekate is found within its spells and stories and incantations and governance. Dated between, so the Greek magical papyri dated between 200 BCE and 500 CE, so 500 years into the Common Era, we're still finding this. We find references to virginity in several invocations involving Hekate. For example, in the charm of Hekate Ereshkigal, against fear of punishment, it reads, I saw the other thing down below, virgin, bitch, and all the rest. Bitch referring to a female dog, not actual female dog, not calling Hekate like a bitch in like some derogatory hell whore kind of way.
Right.
And in the Chaldean oracles, in the 2nd century CE, it says, she says, I come, a virgin of varied forms. She's named by a maiden by Pindar, and he lived from 522 to 443 BCE in his Paeans, where he includes a proclamation by the goddess in an oracle. The extract may have been a song sung at her shrine to remind locals of a victory or as part of a festival honoring Apollo. The virgin with the red border, kindly Hekate, was the messenger for the world which wanted to come true. Depictions of her before the 20th century ordinarily showed her as a young woman or a lady of indeterminate age. Obviously, again, taking on many forms: single, triple, quadruple, zoomorphic, even named as the mother of Scylla, again, as well as the sorceress of Circe and Medea. So let's check that out. So Scylla. Who the fuck is Scylla? So, so from the Argonautica by Apollonius Rhodius from the 3rd century BCE, we have, nor let them go too near the hateful den of Ausonian Scylla, that wicked monster born to Phorcys by night-wandering Hekate, whom men call Crataeus. Speaking these words in the Argonautica, the sorceress Circe equates Hekate with Crataeus. The latter is also named as Scylla Cagitis, meaning leader of dogs. Lamia from shark. There's Lamia.
Yeah, you know, I was curious if that was the same figure as we discussed in the Lamia episode.
But I don't think so, because in this, Lamia just derives from shark.
Yeah, but it's interesting because in the legend that concerns Lamia, she had a daughter by the same name, Scylla or Scylla, who was the only one of her children whom Hera allowed to live.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure if this is the same figure, but it's kind of interesting.
Kind of sounds like it.
It kind of makes sense why she would be the only one allowed to live if she was touched by Hekate.
Right.
You know. So that's interesting. I like that.
Right.
Good connection.
As well as Trionos, the thrice. Trionos is a reference to 3 high and low tides, which were ascribed to Scylla or Scylla's ability to suck the water in and spit it out again 3 times a day. The number 3 is also an important symbol associated with Hekate. So I don't know, because this Scylla seems like the tide itself.
Yeah.
So
I know the one I'm familiar with was at one point in human form, but later became like a monster figure.
So this says Scylla is depicted as having the torso and head of a female and body with multiple legs, sometimes part canine and part fish. She is closely associated with both the islands of Sicily and with the Strait of Messina, a narrow and treacherous strip of ocean between Sicily and mainland Italy, where she is said to live. Halfway up the cliff is a murky cave facing Erebos, and doubtless it is past this, Odysseus, that you and your men will steer your vessel. Inside lives Scylla, yelping hideously. Her voice is no deeper than a young puppy's, but she herself is a fearsome monster. No one could see her and still be happy, not even a god if he went that way. She has 12 feet, all dangling down, 6 long necks with a grisly head on each of them, and each had a triple row of crowded and close-set teeth, fraught with black death. And that is from the Odyssey.
Yes.
Circe's advice to Odysseus is that he should invoke Crataeus for her help against the perils of Scylla. Will you not bow to the deathless gods themselves? Scylla is not of mortal kind. She is a deathless monster, grim and baleful, savage, not to be wrestled with. Against her there is no defense, and the best path is the path of flight. If you pause to arm beside that rock, I fear that she may dart out again, seize again with as many heads and snatch as many men as before. No, row hard and invoke Crataeus. She is Scylla's mother. It is she who bore her to plague mankind. Crataeus will hold her from darting twice. And apparently there are some parallels between Scylla and the Nereids, which are the female creatures who live in the Aegean Sea, which includes Thetis, a goddess of the waters. And Thetis is sometimes equated to Metis, who is described as the first of the wives of Zeus.
Yes, as we talked about earlier.
Yes. So yes, it appears that
those
Hekate is linked and may have merged, as we thought, with a worship of Metis.
Yes, and Thetis.
And they merged to Hekate, and you would have a triplet again of Hekate, Thetis, Metis, and Zeus.
So then that makes sense, you know, knowing that Thetis was considered to be Zeus's first wife, and she is linked with Hekate. That makes sense why in certain interpretations it's Hekate who is in that role.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah, this whole Scylla situation though is interesting to me because I grew up reading the Odyssey. It's one of my, actually was how I discovered my pagan faith when I was a kid.
Right.
So obviously I've heard of this figure before, but when we did the episode where we delved into the whole Lamia thing, and we found out that was the name of her one surviving daughter who was allowed to live.
Yes.
I assumed that was the same figure, but maybe it's not.
Right. But
it's certainly they're certainly very connected.
Well, yes, and what's interesting though in terms of this, I have to say, is like the Hesiod and shit, theogony, these are like scriptures, right?
Yeah.
The Odyssey is retellings of scripture by Homer. So we can't, this is why, like, because this is kind of the only time that Scylla's mentioned as Hecate's daughter.
Right.
So there may be, that's more of like, 2,000 years later, Homer's hearing it that way, and that's how, and when he's telling the tales of Odysseus, which by then, by then, there's a temple to Odysseus because he is now he's canonized at this point. And so people pray to him as they do other demigods, which today are now saints.
Yes.
So that would make sense that by then maybe things had
orally evolved,
Orally evolved,
over
yeah.
the centuries. That is very interesting, though.
Yeah.
I think it is the same figure, but I think, like we said, the legend evolved as to like how she was described over all of that time as it was passed down.
So it says, now Zeus, king of the gods, made Metis his wife first, and this is from the Theogony.
Okay.
And she was wisest among gods and mortal men. But when she was about to bring forth the goddess bright-eyed Athene, Zeus craftily deceived her with cunning words and put her in his own belly, as earth and starry heaven advised. So she was associated with, okay, so that's interesting, as earth and starry heaven advised. I'm like, that's Hekate. So like, she was like, bitch, eat Metis.
Yeah.
Like, all, like, okay, yeah. So then it's like, yeah, I absorb her. I absorb Metis. It's kind of maybe to explain Hekate absorbing Metis and Thetis. So she was associated with the art of magic as well as with wisdom. She was described as the goddess of wisdom, counsel, prudence, all valued in the Mycenaean era.
Yes.
The general resemblance between the myths of Metis and Thetis is unmistakable. Metis, like Thetis, was a sea power.
Yes.
Metis, like Thetis, was a shapeshifter. Metis, like Thetis, was loved by Zeus. Metis, like Thetis, was designed to bear a son that should oust his father, a danger averted in either case by an oracular an utterance and a consequential guile.
Which is why he ate her.
Right. So now we're going to get to Medea, Circe, and Agelaus. Probably where Angelus or Angelus comes from.
Yeah, I bet so.
We are told, so what is this from? This is from the Library of History, Diodorus Siculus, from the 1st century BCE. We are told that Helios had two sons, Aeetes and Perses. Aeetes being the king of Colchis, and the other king of the Tauric, Chersonesus. I'm so sorry. Perses had a daughter, Hekate. She married Aeetes and bore two daughters, Circe and Medea, and a son, Agelaus. So again, that quote is from the Diodorus Siculus, and she is given as the granddaughter of Helios and wife of the mortal king Aeetes and mother to Circe and Medea, as well as son Agelaus. Very different genealogy from given by Hesiod 500 years before.
Yes.
So again, 500 years before, this is all trickled down when Hecate's already at this point been around for a few thousand years in some form, or originally connected to through Kibble.
Yes.
So starting in the cradle of civilization in Chattelhoyuk to thousands of years later, now she is marrying a mortal king who originally was a fucking deific king first. He was a god. Him and Perseus were gods. But now we get to here, and Helios has two mortal sons. Yeah, so it's like, so maybe that's where then we get that stupid demigoddess shit from the Hercules cartoon show from 1999 or whatever.
Wow.
So Circe was a shape-shifting sorceress and sometimes goddess, depending on who was talking, who was only defeated by Odysseus when the latter is given help from the trickster god Hermes. And Hermes has so many parallels to Papa Legba, Alegba Eshu. It's not even funny.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm like, again, that will further, that's another episode. Here's a story, so it's a story of magic, lust, power. So the Homeric hymn describes her as Circe, a goddess with braided hair, with human speech and with strange powers. The magician Aeetes was her brother, and both were the radiant sun god Helios' children. Their mother was Perse, Okeanos' daughter. So Circe had an exceptional knowledge of magic. Not only was she adept at using herbs and plants, she could control the weather, move the unseen. She also practiced love magic and knew necromancy. Hekate in the Agronautica is named specifically as the teacher of the young Medea. So there is a maiden nurtured in the halls of Aeetes, whom the goddess Hekate taught to handle magic herbs with exceeding skill, all that the land and flowering waters produce. So the mistress, she says, the mistress whom I worship above all others and name as my helper is Hekate. She also attributed her power to Hekate, saying that, provided the triple form goddess helps, and by her presence assents to my great experiments. In the Metamorphosis, when she seeks to protect Jason from a fire, she invokes the pure rights of Hekate Triformis, the spirits of place in the grove, and Helios as her grandfather. Medea is also positioned as a devotee of Hekate, who calls upon her at shrines, for example, in the Agronautica, the chariot to bear her to the beauteous shrine of Hekate. Thereupon the handmaidens were making ready the chariot, and Medea, meanwhile, took from the hollow casket a charm which men say is called the charm of Prometheus. The man should anoint his body therewithal, having first appeased the maiden Hekate, the only begotten was sacrificed by night. So, obviously, I think it's more, again, I think there's a conflation there, but I think Medea was actually daughter in terms of
daughter in witchcraft.
Witchcraft, yeah.
Yes.
And so the same thing with Circe.
Right.
And then the Scylla thing, and it just that was as told centuries later.
Yes.
Down the line by Homer. So so pretty much she's just, maybe she has some jolly good times, but I think she may be a virgin still. I mean, it's 2025. Who knows by now?
Right.
And I'm not going to ask her. I'm not rude like that.
Right.
So okay.
Not like you're going before your altar, being like, "Bitch, mother, you ever done?"
Right. So let's get into Hekate in Egypt. So here we are. Once again, we're moving to the magic, because in Egyptian culture, magic is heavy in the religion. It's all over. So there's no way, even though we talked about her earlier complaints and stuff, there was no way to talk about her in Egypt without talking about magic and witchcraft. So it just, Yeah, so that's why we didn't do it earlier when we were talking about her primordial roots.
Right.
So in the Metamorphosis, as mentioned, Hekate is mentioned as one of the many names of the mother goddess Isis. So the text describes a long list of qualities to Isis, many of which are also attributed to Hekate. I am she that is the natural mother of all things, mistress and governess of all the elements, the initial progeny of worlds, chief of power divine, queen of heaven, the principle of the gods celestial, the light of the goddesses. At my will, the planets of the air, the wholesome winds of the seas, and the silences of hell be disposed. My name, my divinity is adored throughout all the world in diverse manners, in various customs, and in many names. To others, Bellona and Hekate and Ramnusia. So that's literally, when I'm reading that, those are all literally titles of Hekate.
Yeah.
The mother of all things, mistress and governess of all the elements, the progeny of worlds, chief of powers divine, the queen of heaven, the principle of the gods celestial, many named mother of the gods, mother of all gods and men, the torchbearer, the fucking, the world soul, the fucking creatrix of the universe, the original progeny of worlds, in charge of all four elements, like the fucking winds, the seas, the earth, the air, and hell, the underworld. My name, my divinity is adored throughout all the world in diverse manners. So, yes, in the Metamorphosis, many goddesses are associated with Isis, but Isis's cult was a popular one, infused with that of many other Greek Roman goddesses. However, though, Hekate and Isis had more points of commonality and became merged into Isis Hekate. From the book Eternal Goddesses of Isis, Eternal Goddess of Egypt and Rome, which came out in 2015, it says, magic is a major aspect linking Isis to Hekate. There was a bronze statue in Rome that depicts Hekate wearing the lunar crown of Isis, topped by lotus blossoms, and carrying a lighted torch in each hand. The statue is dedicated to Hekate at Serapis, from someone who was saved by them from an unnamed danger. Both Isis and Artemis are shown carrying a torch, as is torch-bearing Hekate, who eliminates the secrets of the world. And this is not an isolated example. Isis Hekate is shown on coins, including lead tesserae from Memphis, minted during the Roman period. One such example depicts Isis Hekate with 3 faces, crowned with a horned crown, next to the Apis bowl and another smaller human figure, possibly a demon. Isis had acquired the horns during her own conflation with the cow-headed Hathor, and Hekate was often described as being bull or cow-headed. The Uraeus serpent also appears on coins showing Isis Hekate, again highlighting the serpent symbol shared by both goddesses. So Isis Hekate similarly appears on intaglios, or engraved gemstones, in triple form, holding serpents, swords, and torches. The two goddesses are also both depicted as mother goddesses holding a child. Isis shown holding her son Horus, or Harpocrates, and seated and standing positions. Hekate is likewise shown holding a child, likely to be the baby Dionysus, or Zabazias, or whatever. Zabazias? The Sabazias. Which is that? Sabazias, or...
Oh, I pronounce it Sabazius.
Sabazius. We'll go with Sabazius. Sabazius. Though it is possible that it might also represent Apollo or Zeus, since she was connected to the birth of both of them, albeit not as their mothers.
Right.
So again, here's to you, Mrs. Robinson. Let's see. One extant example of this can be found in the Archaeological Museum in Sofia, Bulgaria. Let's see. So the carving of feet onto the steps of the Temple of Hekate and Langina may have been due to contact with the cult of Isis. The practice of carving plante pedum as ex votos at temples was also specific to the initiates of Isis, and then spread around the Roman Empire with her cult. Osiris became Serapis, the companion of Isis, and their child Horus became the god Harpocrates, who was associated with secrets. And there's evidence of Serapis being present at the Temple of Hekate in Langina. There's suggestion of a small sanctuary to Serapis that stood at the site. So this combined with numerous inscriptions from other sites linked Isis Hekate and Hekate with Serapis, and then there were depictions on crystal talismans showing Hekate with Harpocrates, or whatever his name is, Harpocrates, I'm sorry, I'm butchering it, shows that Hekate and Isis' connection went deeper. In the Egyptian collection in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, there's a bronze statue of Isis entitled Isis the Magician, and in this image it shows Isis with 3 faces, which is likely a Hellenic depiction inspired by Isis' conflation with Hekate. Jackson also notes that Isis became associated with dogs outside of Egypt, and Isis temple in Rome showed an image of Isis on a dog, as well as an image of Isis with a dog beneath her throne. And outside of Egypt, processions honoring Isis were frequently led by a priest of Anubis wearing a jackal mask. And there's the triple Hekate.
Oh, wow.
So in Egypt, the god Osiris was consort, obviously, to Isis, or Aset, but again, her worship went everywhere. Hekate and Isis, of course, again, were conflated. And there are parts where Hekate replaces Isis entirely in inscriptions, becoming Serapis' companion, which might again account why Osiris Serapis was at Langina.
Huh. Sorry, this is very random, but just kind of thinking back on everything that you've said so far, I wonder if the god Sabazius has ties with the name Sebastian.
Maybe. Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Jesus, I had to go all across the fucking continent. So in Alexandria, which was founded and named after Alexander the Great, as we know, Hekate kicked his dad's ass,
right,
and saved Byzantium. This flourished as one of the greatest cultural and spiritual centers of the world, and it was celebrated as a home to the famous Library of Alexandria, and it was a melting pot of Hellenic, pagan, Jewish, and Christian ideas. So there's defictions or blessings, prayers, curses, requests. Entreating Hecate's help was found in Alexandria, believed to date to the 3rd century. The precise purpose of the spell is unclear, although something to do with a love affair, which was homosexual, is likely. And the spell utilizes many names from the Voices Magica, which is a book we're going to get into when we talk about the Eleusinian Mysteries and the Greek Magical Papyri, the ancient spell books. And Hermes is also invoked in the spell, as well as Ereshkigal and Kor and Persephone, which are all conflated, of course, with Hekate. And it says, Hekate, true Hekate, come and accomplish for me this very act.
Oh.
So he's like, cut away all the bullshit and get me true Hekate, is who I'm calling. Forget all the other names. Give me you, primordial, and make this happen. So Hekate with Anubis. Hekate and Anubis are featured together on a 3rd century Jasper gemstone charm. And again, the first side, it shows a lion-headed figure crowned with 8 rays, so Hekate, facing right and holding a branch and wreath in his hands. And this is almost certainly, it's actually a depiction of the god Ion, who is the god of unbounded time with a close association with the mystery traditions. And so this is in this coin. Now, the inscription on this side of the gem combines elements of Judeo-Christian belief. Michael, the highest, Gabriel, the strongest. And the obverse shows a representation of the jackal-headed Egyptian god Anubis, holding a flail and possibly another wreath, and he faces a 3-formed Hekate, carrying whips, torches, and daggers. And Hekate and Anubis are being petitioned alongside Ion and the archangels Michael and Gabriel, providing an example, again, Hekate Angelos, an example of how the boundaries between the religions blurred when magic got involved.
Yeah.
So this gemstone is not the only one. The love spell recorded that we saw in the PGM, Greek Magical Papyri, requests help from among those who died a violent death, as well as invoking Hekate, Hermes, Thor, Pluto, and Anubis. The same spell also employs the use of Hebrew divine names. Similarly, Hekate is called upon in conjunction with Archangel Michael in a spell to the waning moon in the Greek Magical Papyri. Another Roman period gemstone in the collection of the Bibliotheca Nationale Paris also shows Hekate with Anubis and 2 additional creatures. Hekate is shown as triformis with a tall torch or scepter and snake with a fire on an altar before her, and Anubis appears to make a libation into the fire. And the 2 other characters stand behind him. So again, she's above. She is there. The gods go to her.
Right.
The Chaldean oracles, these are, magical theurgic work as being, and its focus is foremost on her as being the savior and as a benevolent source of souls and virtues. So thereafter, when things are no longer visible, when the vault of heaven and the expanse of the universe has dissolved, when the stars have ceased to shine and the lamp of the moon is veiled, when the earth trembles and the lightning plays around it, invoke not the visible phantom of nature's soul, for thou must in no wise behold it until the body has been purified by the holy ordeals and revators of souls, which they distract from sacred occupations. The dog-faced demons issue from the confines of matter and expose to mortal eyes the semblances of illusory bodies, labor around the circles described by the rhombus of Hekate. Change thou nothing in the barbarous names of evocation, for they are pantheistic titles of God. They are magnetized by the devotion of the multitudes, and their power is ineffable. When after all the phantoms thou shalt behold the shining of that incorporeal fire, that sacred fire that the darts of which penetrate in every direction through the depths of the world, hearken the words of the fire. So again, she is called upon as the savior of the world. Hekate and Apollo are essential figures throughout the Chaldean oracles. The philosophy positions inside of the text can nearly all be found within Greek Middle Platonism of the sort which thrived at learning centers like Ampia. She's described as the mistress of life and holds the plenitude of the full womb of the cosmos. So she's really seen as, in these magical books, she is invoked to command all types of spells. All right, so we'll get into the Eleusinian mysteries, and all the other magic when we do spellcraft. So follow us back to the apartment. See you there.
Yeah.